The panel investigating the Capitol riots in the U.S. has recommended charges be brought against former President Donald Trump for inciting an insurrection and obstructing an official proceeding. The Democratic-led committee said Trump intended to disrupt the peaceful transition of power after he lost the 2020 election. The panel's recommendations are non-binding and will now go to a special counsel appointed by the Attorney General. 5 people died when a violent mob stormed the Capitol in a bid to keep Trump in power.
We knew that dozens of state and federal...
And our Washington bureau chief sent us this assessment of today's January 6th committee recommendation and what it could all mean for Donald Trump.
It's been 17 months since the January 6th committee started investigating the events leading up to that fateful day when thousands of Donald Trump supporters descended upon the United States Capitol with the intention of overturning the 2020 election. During its last public hearing, the committee took the unprecedented step of recommending criminal charges for former President Trump. Now, it will be up to the U.S. Attorney General and the Justice Department whether the evidence presented by the committee is enough to bring formal charges against him. With this dark chapter coming to a close, eyes are now on the 2024 election and whether Trump's political career will survive.
And for more, let's cross right over to Clark Cunningham. He's a constitutional lawyer and a professor of law at Georgia State University. Good evening. How important is this conclusion since it's not binding?
Well, the January 6th committee has put together a very persuasive body of evidence. And so in terms of what the discourse is in the United States right now, it's certainly going to be very important. We're all reading it. We're all talking about it. It's certainly going to affect our thinking about former President Trump. Whether or not they're providing any information to the Department of Justice that it doesn't already have, we can't be sure. But in addition to the referral to the Department of Justice, I'm sitting in Atlanta, Georgia, where there was a grand jury meeting under state law, which is also quite likely, I think, to issue an indictment against former President Trump. And they will now be able to have use of all of this information that's being released by the committee. So that's very significant here as well.
So what's next now in this process?
Well, the Department of Justice is probably going to remain tight-lipped about what they're doing. But on the other hand, here in Georgia, there is an expectation that our grand jury may issue its report as soon as maybe next month. They're waiting to have Mark Meadows testify in front of them. They're waiting to have the former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, testify in front of them. And then I think they've pretty much wrapped up their work. So the fact that the January 6th committee has specifically named Mark Meadows in a criminal referral is going to make his appearance in front of the Fulton grand jury important. And he has not been successful in his court battles not to appear. He may appear and just take the Fifth Amendment, as I believe probably Michael Flynn already did. So really then it's the question of when do indictments issue? Do they come out of the federal government first or do they come out of Georgia next?
The panel worked 18 months to put all the evidence together investigating this case, and they talked to scores and scores of people. Will the next steps take as long as that, you think?
I doubt it. I expect that our report here in Georgia will be out, I would imagine, by January. And then soon thereafter, our prosecutor here in Atlanta can be making decisions to seek indictments. And I think it's quite possible that she might begin by indicting some of the persons named by the January 6th committee who are not the former president, but, for example, lawyers that work with him, or perhaps Mark Meadows. They might be the first to be indicted, and they might try to move quickly to bring those people to trial. Again, we just don't know. There's a special prosecutor now working at the federal level, and every evidence is that he is working with a great deal of energy. So I think that we are going to see criminal proceedings starting fairly soon.
We don't have much time, but I do want to ask you, how likely do you think it is, knowing what we know now, that we're going to see a former president behind bars?
Well, I'm not sure I'm not going to predict that, but I think it's fairly likely that the former president may be sitting in a courtroom facing a jury of his peers. having to explain his actions. Whether that jury is going to unanimously convict is a much more difficult question.
Clark Cunningham, constitutional lawyer at the Georgia State University. Thank you so much.